Justin Rezvani, how are you?
Jimmy, thank you so much for having me. I'm good, brother. I'm good.
Yeah.
We're coming back from an intense conference.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy, huh? What was that like for you?
It was a lot of energy. It
Mm,
was very different than last year because last year I hadn't even launched the company yet,
mm,
and I
mm,
didn't know anybody. Like
mm,
I went, somehow I met the conference they asked me to speak, but I didn't know a single person. I never
mm,
got invited to a single thing.
uh-huh.
I was really new to the community, and then this time it was just like a lot more energy
Yeah.
and a lot more people.
Well, I assume you went to some of the parties then.
I went to some of the events, but I didn't really go out I didn't want to
Uh-huh.
be out that late.
Okay. All right. Well, what did you think? Like, was it fun? Was it good for you? Were you disappointed? Were you happy?
I thought it was an incredible experience.
Mm.
I think the thing that for me was just personally challenging was like my book launched on Monday. So there was like, and I'm like, the company was launching a bunch of stuff. So
Uh-huh.
I didn't enjoy it as much as last year. I wasn't as giddy
Uh-huh.
because I was just so focused on specific things I had to do. And this is part of my spiritual work is like,
Mhm.
I need to sit back and enjoy the experience, not just
Mm.
like stress about the experience. But this is stuff I'm working on with myself.
Well, you did launch the book on like Monday,
Yeah.
and you invited me to the thing, but of course I wasn't around. And then you flew to Miami,
Yeah.
and I think you did a book signing there, or
We did,
yeah,
we did, we did.
and your company co-founder JP Sears was, like he was like emceeing the whole conference and like doing a bunch of other stuff. So, I mean, like that couldn't have been very easy, like trying to manage all of that and launching the company and launching the book, and like how do you deal with that, like all
I'm
of that?
I'm learning to. It's challenging for me because
Mm,
this is like very new.
mm,
The last company I built was a decent sized business, but it was not as public.
mm,
We didn't have thousands of customers. We had a few very large brands as clients, so I
mhm.
got to deal with one energy.
Yeah.
But now it's like thousands of people's energy and the expectations are just like increasing. I have investors for the first time. Like my
Mm-hmm.
last company, I had no investors. So I'm learning a lot about myself, but I'm also learning this is like such a spiritual work. Like this is spiritual work. Like building a business is a spiritual path. Like it's really
Well,
intense.
tell
But
me more about that. What do you mean by spiritual path?
I,
Like is it your soul that's suffering? What's the deal here?
I think that I'm learning a lot about myself and
Mm-hmm.
how I deal with the conflicts in my own mind,
Mm-hmm.
and they're amplified because of this business, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I think some of the examples they give of like if you're a monk in a cave, you're
Mm-hmm.
never going to get angry because there isn't anything to get angry about. And now I have so many external factors that I don't
Mm-hmm.
have control over
Mm-hmm.
that could relate to the impact of how I feel. And I'm learning how to just like it is what it is. It
Mm-hmm.
is. It is. I'm trying to be like Bruce Lee says, like be like water. Like I'm learning how to do that, and it's very new for me. It's a very challenging process, but it's part of my medicine, I guess.
Mm. Well, I find it interesting that you describe that process as spiritual because you do have a lot of external inputs, and we all do, of course. But you're having to deal with a sort of conflict and things like that. Like it's from the inside and trying to figure out how to deal with it as it comes. That's spiritual for you,
It's
or
absolutely spiritual
okay.
because it's how do I experience it with myself?
Mm,
My relationship with myself, I think, is a spiritual path. And
mm,
then eventually, whatever you think your relationship with your creator is as well,
mm-hmm,
it's all
mm-hmm,
part of the same thing. I do believe in a higher power,
mm-hmm,
and I do believe that there's something there that kind of sets us closer to whatever it is. And
mm-hmm.
so I think it's just part of the experience. It's like any relationship.
Mm,
Like I believe a relationship brings you closer to yourself.
mm-hmm.
And I think building a business brings you closer to yourself. So
Mm-hmm.
it's part of me and my growth, I guess.
Okay. Well, we'll get to some of that, but let's go backwards a little bit. Where are you coming from? Who are you?
How did I
Like
get
introduce
here?
yourself to the audience because
So
I think we jumped ahead a little bit. Yeah.
yeah, we went right into it. So I'm Justin. I actually moved to Austin in September of 2020.
Mm,
Came from LA.
mm,
I've been an entrepreneur, I guess, my whole life.
mm,
I've never, since now it's coming on 13 was when I started my first company, which was painting curbs on the side, painting numbers on the sides of curbs in my neighborhood. And so all I've really known how to do is like build something and figure it out and create value. And that's almost, now it's 20 years. I'm 33 now. So I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years, I guess. I started my first company, like my first official business out of college when I was 24. And I built a advertising business, a marketing business, sold that company in 2016. I left the board in 2018. And then I got introduced to the Bitcoin Lightning Network in 2020. Then it's all been from there. It's just been this path of like, you know, awakening of what the future looks like.
Well, let's go back a little bit, because you started painting curbs, right?
Yeah,
Like, so how much were you selling it for? What was
so,
the service?
So the service was my neighborhood was getting to be about 25 years old, and this is before like Google Maps and stuff. So you know, there's numbers on the sides of curbs. So I wrote a letter, and in the letter I said, in case of an emergency, you should make sure that the curbs in front of your house are very visible. So I'm offering a service where I'll repaint the numbers on the side with like a spray paint. It'll cost you $10, and I put this in everyone's mailbox in my neighborhood. So I made a couple $100 over a summer doing that. That was like a business that I like learned how to do. And
Okay, at 13.
at 13 years old, yeah.
Very nice.
And that was my first time learning about this concept of value exchange, where I can do a good or service. I can charge a premium because I'm saving someone time, and then make some money along the way.
Yeah, I
And
feel
that's
like
a-
you didn't charge enough. $10. You should,
I mean, at
you should
the
probably should
time,
have 20.
at the time, that's a lot of money for me. Right? Like that's a lot of money for a 13-year-old kid. Like I think at the end of the summer it was like $850 that I made. And I
Wow,
was
so
like,
you did 85 houses.
yeah, and over the summer, yeah.
Okay. Well, I actually thinking about it, like how long did it take you to
All
like,
summer it was 3 months.
No, I mean, but like to do one house.
So there was this mold that I needed to use. So it was this long channel mold. I needed to put every number on there. And then I need to like tape it. You need to tape all around it so it doesn't. Then you have to do the base coat. And you have to do the second coat. So I don't know if I'm remembering, maybe 30, 40 minutes each house. It wasn't fast. It wasn't like a quick thing. I wasn't spray painting numbers. It was like it was stencils that I used.
Okay. So that's what, like $15 an hour? Pretty good job for a kid, something like that.
Not bad. $15 an hour at the time. This was, I think, maybe minimum wage was $10 an hour at the time.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm trying to remember that. It was a long time ago.
Well, I mean,
2000.
20 years or 2002, something like that.
2000, 2001, 2002. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So tell me how that like affected you internally. Like how did that change? That experience change you as a person?
It was just a confirmation that like this is how I'm supposed to proceed in the world. It's like following directions or like, you know, following a certain path that someone else is giving me is just not my cup of tea. It's why I was a really bad student in high school. I graduated with below a 2.0 GPA, so I barely got out. I had to go to community college to get into an actual university. When I got into university, I had a really low GPA when I graduated. but it's interesting what I learned in that process, where I had a low GPA in college, but I was hyper involved in student. So I was involved in student government. I was involved in my fraternity. I was the president and founder of the marketing club in my university. So it's funny. I was just telling this story earlier this week. I was not a good student. And when I graduated college, the dean brought me into his office like a week before graduation and said, hey, so normally the only people that speak at graduation are the valedictorian or this other person that gets a really high GPA. But we feel like you should speak because you're a real representative of our students. So we're going to make up this new thing called the representative of the class. And you're going to speak and present a gift to the president of the university. So you'll get to speak. I was like, okay, cool. Thanks. Like, thanks for letting me do that. And I think that was an interesting experience for me because it showed me that like I wasn't the best student, but I was the most involved and I was the most extracurricular and I still had a chance to be something and I didn't have good grades. And that was the catalyst that said I can do anything I want in my life.
Well, it's interesting because you essentially blazed your own path. Like if you went down the path to speak at graduation, it would have been valedictorian or having a high GPA and I don't know, winning some award or something like that. Instead, you made it your own and said, screw the fact that I got like a 2.0. let's go up there and do something with it.
And there was, when I look at the stuff that I was doing, I mean, there was no marketing club. So I reignited the American Marketing Association. And within a year, we were like an award-winning group. When I was coming to student government, this is actually funny. So I was competing to like get elected as like as a I don't know what it's called, something in student government. I didn't win the election, but the side that did win the election, the president came to me and said, I want you part of my cabinet. I'm going to make up a position so you're involved. And I was just like, all the things, it's just like, I made up my own way to just be involved. It's like this interesting, just make up your own story and just make life a story.
Yeah, I've noticed this a lot in Bitcoin, right? Like, cause you know, I honestly, I didn't do that well in school either, right? Like I did like math club and did, you know, like did well on these competitions and stuff, but my GPA sucked. And part of it was I felt trapped in a classroom, right? Because you're having to essentially regurgitate something to this teacher. I mean, some of it was just my own laziness. I didn't want to go. Like there were like weeks in class where I just didn't go and stuff like that. I'm sure you feel the same way.
100%.
The bigger thing though is that, you know, the path that they lay out for you within the system is like almost meant as a way to filter out certain types of people, including people like us. Whereas like blazing your own path tends to reward sort of that initiative or ability to create create value for other people, which I don't know, it feels so wrong that like you punish so many entrepreneurs essentially in school and they come out thinking I'm good for nothing or something, instead of thinking that they have this talent to be able to do stuff that, you know, other people aren't recognizing.
I think that was a part of my upbringing, is that I was, sometimes I believed in myself because I didn't get good grades, like I was never good enough. And that's because of the system that I was put in. But I think the system is not made for individuals like us. It's made to create workers.
Yeah.
It's made to create, you know, I don't like to use that like a bad word, but in some way like slaves. It's made to use like, you follow this, then you do this, then you do this, then you do this, and you follow this path. And I don't think that's the way humans should live.
Yeah, it's almost like we're made to be like cogs in a machine, right? Like, or like you know, you graduated as an accountant, and you can be this accountant cog in this machine, and you know, you can't really do anything else. And that was one of the frustrating things for me as a coder. You know, I of course that was what I was after college, and was for, you know, very, very long time. I still code, but you know, one of the really frustrating things about doing that is you're paid to code and that's it. You know, you might have good ideas for the business, or you might think, okay, well, this program could work, and like no one listens to you because that's not your lane. That's not your role. You're reaching outside. Whereas as an entrepreneur, those are things that you almost naturally do. And you know, one of the big regrets of my life is not becoming an entrepreneur earlier. You know, it's only after I came into Bitcoin. So I'm curious, like, what was that entrepreneurial path for you like? Like, where did you see value? How did you identify it and start businesses and stuff?
It was so obvious that this was the only way. My father was a tremendous guidance in my life. He's been an entrepreneur his whole life. He came here from Iran with nothing. He literally came with nothing and built a business, and you know, not a massive business, but a metal manufacturing business. He would wake up at 5 a.m. He'd come home at 6 p.m. When I was a kid, I would help him do accounting. I would help him do, like, put stuff into QuickBooks. I was like helping him understand, like, this is what drives the family forward is this business. The business is what allows us to live our life. So I was made in that fire, right? Like that fire is how I was forged. So I had no other option. Even today, like I will only do my own path. I will only have my own way of doing things. And that's just how I've lived my whole life.
Well, so let's talk about like that first sort of entrepreneurial opportunity after college, right? Like you graduate, you get to speak at the commencement. What happens next? What's next?
I go to Europe for the summer and just try to explore life. And then I got a job selling banner ads at this like agency for a few months. And within 6 months, it was like very clear that I'm not the right person for this job because I have ideas. I'm like, and I'm a sales planner. So I'm like the lowest of the lowest totem pole. I'm making sales decks for people to go sell banner ads on websites to brands. And I was just like, oh, I think we should do this. And like, they would tell me, they're like, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, you just got out of school. Like I was given that mentality of like, you are this and threw you in there. And then I started my company after that. So like, as soon as I had this job for a few months, then it was like, you know what? I'm going to go start this company. I believe in this idea. Instagram had just got bought by Facebook for $1 billion. There needed a way to run ads on Instagram. And then I built an ad platform on Instagram. It was very simple. Like it was, to me, it was very simple because there was this massive gap in the market. Was there an app, and this is 2013, is there an app on the App Store that connects a brand to an influential person on Instagram? There was no app that did that at the time. So it was like, obvious, let me make an app to do that, and I'll make money in between. And I'll like, I had just read the 4-Hour Workweek. It's like, I'm gonna live on a beach. I'm gonna have this thing run itself. Little did I know, like that doesn't work. I got highly involved in the business, but ended up making a lot of money. Like the first 6 weeks of the company made $110,000 in revenue, and I took home 60. I made more money in 6 weeks than I would have done in 2 years of my old job.
Wow. Wow,
And
30,000 a year, huh?
It was like 36.
It
It was like 36, yeah.
Wow, and you took home 60. Well, so what was the impetus for the for that idea? How did you find it, and how did you decide to go all in? Because that to me is the critical part.
It was, so the idea was pretty simple. I had a friend, this is actually at the beginning of the book, in my introduction. I had a friend, he was on a show called Pretty Little Liars. His name was Keegan Allen. Big, he had like, I don't know, 4 or 5 million followers at the time on Instagram. I was like, hey, are you like doing ads with brands? He's like, yeah, but it's a pain in the ass. Like, it's like my agent, they take 20%, they take 20%. This one, contracts take forever. I was like, is there an app that would send you a thing on your phone, your private device, says a brand wants to work with you, you create the content there and post it instantly on your Instagram and get paid by PayPal that night. Instant remittance, right? This was the beginning. This was the beginning of thinking of removing the arbiter, right? Like we wanted to remove the agent and the manager. That was the vision with the app. We did do that. Creators were really happy, but I was still using PayPal as the payment rail. So see how like there's a pattern that emerges of like, why did I get into Lightning eventually? Why is this a creator business? It was so obvious that this was a better way to do it. And then you layer on other things. Then you start layering on analytics. Then you start layering on, oh, this app can ping 100 influencers at the same time. So it's not one person. You get 100 people to talk about your brand all at the same time with one app. This is now getting scale, right? Then big brands are like, we want scale. Scale's expensive. Tech can help you enable scale. And then one thing led to another, and the business is doing. In the third year, we did, I think, a little bit over 5.5 million in top line, and I took home like 2.5. It was making.
And you're 25 years old.
25 years old at the time.
You have like 5. What was that like for you? Well, so let's go back a little bit, because I think for a lot of people that maybe listen to the show that have sort of like the traditional job or whatever. And like it feels very scary to jump into something like that. Like what was it about the opportunity, and what was going on internally that made you say, you know what, I'm gonna go and do this. I'm gonna go for this. What inside you led you to that decision point?
I had no choice.
Okay.
I was a man with no choice.
Okay.
It was either fail and be like miserable and potentially go live with my parents again, or do this, like try something really hard. But it was so clear after a few weeks that like this was the way that needed to be done. It's so clear in my heart, like this is what I have to do.
Where did that conviction come from though? Like, was it from like your upbringing or something else?
Trust in myself.
Okay.
Trust in my family. I mean, like I had the support of my family. Like they were so supportive. My dad was super supportive. They went out on a limb to make this work. Like they gave me some capital to live for the first like 6 months. They said, hey, I'm going to give you some money. Go figure this out. They helped. I mean, to build the app, I was using an Indian developer that I was paying $2,000 a month to build it. And I was working on it, the rest of it myself. So it was one of those things that I don't know how to describe it. I had no choice.
Okay.
It was just like in my heart, I had to do this.
Well, I guess you didn't get addicted to sort of like the fiat money that comes in through a job yet, because it was paying so low, first of all, and like you felt frustrated and you were young. What sort of advice would you give to maybe older people? Like there are plenty of people that are probably listening to this show that are maybe in their 30s. They've been in a fiat job for a while, right? Like they've worked for companies. They have an idea, but they're really scared. What drives that sort of belief in yourself and that conviction in your idea?
I have an interesting, I have two opinions on this. One opinion actually is, I don't believe everyone should be an entrepreneur. And this is really in my heart, because I think it could be more detrimental to your life if you decide to go down this path, because it doesn't make logical sense to suffer as much as you do as an entrepreneur. Like the thing we were starting this, like, it's a spiritual journey in myself. The thing I forgot to tell you is, like, I don't ever have to work again. Like, financially, I feel like I'm in a place, after I sold the first business, like I was in a place financially, like I don't really have to. So it's something that's in you that's a little bit like wacky to go do this, right? To go be an entrepreneur. It's very challenging. So I would really go into self-reflection of, like, is this really the path that you want to do? If that is a yes, then how do you want to end? How do you want this life to end? Do you want to have any regrets in your life? Like, I've had a really intense near-death experience 2 years ago after I sold my first business. And I want to live a life where I do not ever regret a single experience that I've had. Like, I mean, I don't know if I've told you this story, but like, I had a brain tumor. I had brain surgery at the beginning of 2020. Like, wow. I've gone through like series of life, and I don't want to ever regret that I didn't try to fix some of the hardest problems out there. That's just in my heart.
Well, so there's probably like 30 things we can unpack from just what you said.
Sorry.
But like, going back, so you talked about how difficult it was, and this is something that I think a lot of people don't get about entrepreneurship. And like, you earn every penny, right? Like
100%.
So tell us a little bit more about like what your day was starting that first company and doing.
You have to go out on a limb every day. You're being rejected hundreds of times. You're getting, I mean, you're getting punched in the face every single day. Like, you're getting hit and you got to wake up and keep going. You're getting hit, you got to wake up and keep going. Because at any moment you quit, you lose everything. Like, it wasn't a thing that, oh, yes, we made 110,000 the first 6 weeks, but that wasn't like, oh, it was just rolling. No, it was waking up every day, cold calling. Hey, would you like to work with our business? Hey, would you like to work with our business? Hey, would you like to work with our pitching constantly, getting in front of people to say, hey, I'm building this thing. It's not like I sat back and this just appeared. It was relentless focus every single day, 7 days a week for years on end. It was relentless. And this is the part where I tell, like, most people don't want to do that. They're not built for that. And that's okay. Like, it's okay. Find what makes your soul happy. Find what makes your internal experience happy. I do this because I don't think I have any other choice, really. Like, in my life, I have choice. I have choice. I do have choice. I don't want to say that I don't, but this is what, to me, is what I'm supposed to do. Right? At times I want to quit. At times I feel like shit, but I really believe in my heart I'm supposed to do this.
Well, so there was a time when you were essentially cold calling, like getting rejected and all of that. What made you get through that? Did you see any glimmer of success or something? What was the thing?
I knew what I was doing was better than the default. I knew that I had something valuable. And if you have enough conviction in yourself that your product is more valuable than the next competitor, that's how you win. You have to have a product that creates more value and someone's willing to pay you a lot of money for it. And I had conviction in what we had created, is saying, we have a better tech solution. We have a better experience for you as a brand. You can give us your money and we'll make it as turnkey as possible and drive the results that you're interested in. And that still falls today. Is like, the reason I'm building Zion on Bitcoin and why I'm building on Lightning is because it's a better payment network for creators to monetize from their fans. It's just better. So that's why I'm doing it in this way. And this is interesting. I have choice. I could have done this a million ways. I could have had a token. We talked to Marty about this. I could have had a token. I could have built my own blockchain. I could have done it on Ethereum. I could have made every single choice out there. But I made the choice with my own capital to say Lightning is the only way to do it.
Well, we'll get to that in
Yeah,
a
I think
second,
we'll get to- sorry.
because we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. We're still at the part of the story where you're sort of like driving, and like the thing that I find interesting about your story is that you were a relentless salesperson, right? Like just like
100%.
cold calling, and this is something that I think a lot of people in startups like completely underestimate. They're like, especially the engineering types like me that get into it. It's you don't realize the level of sales that you're going to have to drive in order to make this work. For a lot of engineers, they become sort of like these like scientists or something like that. And it's like a research lab. Oh, I built this thing, build it and they'll come. That's not the case at all. It's never the case. And you seem to have come from the other side, which is much more sales focused. Okay, here's the value prop that I have, and just pitching it again and again
Constantly.
and again until
And
you know
refining
they
it. And refining it. Like it's not like this is made and this is done. It's constantly refining the questioning, constantly refining the pitch, constantly refining the brand, refining the value proposition every time. It's honing, it's honing, it's honing. It's getting better every single time till you get the value proposition that you believe the market wants and wants to enjoy and wants to create. It wasn't like I woke up and it was like, okay, this is what the business is. Even this thing has evolved every week for the past year and a half since I started this thing. It just refines and it gets better and better, and how we think about it gets better and better.
And that's something that I think a lot of engineers can definitely learn from, because it's very easy to just say, okay, like I know what the market wants or whatever, but this is a critical part of the product market fit cycle, is pitching it, seeing what connects, seeing what the customers want, what their problems are, and constantly talking to as many of them as possible. And this is where sort of like that cold calling and stuff like that, although it's very scary for a lot of introverted engineers to 100%. Like be calling. But this is where that value is found, and you seem to have been relentless in finding that value, refining that message, getting that product market fit, getting that application out there, and you were rewarded as a result.
I think so.
Yeah. Well, so that you do this company in 2013, and you make this app. You do it for how many years?
I sold it in 2016.
Okay, so 3 years.
Fast exit. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so what were those 3 years like as an entrepreneur?
I mean, it was some of my largest growth. It was so hard. I mean, I cried a lot. I was down a lot. I was very lonely for so long. It's such a lonely thing to do it on your own. But I made it. I survived. Right? Like I survived. I got through the end of it, and you know, at the end of 2015, someone gave us an LOI to buy the business. In April of 2016, we sell it. I stay on the board until 2018. And then from there, I took some time to get my health back, because part of that journey was like, I really lost a lot of the things that, like, I gained almost 70 pounds running that business.
Wow.
I was 240 pounds at my peak.
Oh, wow.
I was stress eating like crazy. I was drinking. I was doing a lot of things that weren't good for my body. And even when I sold the business, sometimes it got worse. And I remember I was neglecting, like, I was neglecting my body, and I was neglecting my soul in a lot of ways during that time. And a lot of that I learned, and I've course corrected, and now I have like non-negotiables of like, what do I eat and how much do I work out? Like, these are like non-negotiables for my soul and my spirit. So I learned a lot about myself during that time. It was so hard.
Well, tell us a little bit more about that. Why would you cry, and why is it lonely to be doing a startup and business?
My approach was different. I mean, yes, it was startup, but I had no investors. So I owned 100% of this business when I sold it. This is very rare. Like, this was a bootstrapped company doing a couple $1 million in profit in my third year. Bootstrap business. So you don't have co-founders. There's like my family, like my dad was the only one I talked to. Like, it was like my father and I's relationship like blossomed during that time in like such an impactful way. But it's so lonely. Like, your dad loves you and they want to support you, but you still go home by yourself. Like I was single, I'm still single. Like I'm by myself with this turmoil and this stress and this trauma. So that's the loneliness as entrepreneurs. Like there's no one, like people think like we have advisors and we have this, but like really there's no one to call. Like there's no one to call. There's no one to save you. There's no one to help you. And it's you. You're on this path. Like you're born alone. You're going to die alone. So like, for me, this path was just an incredible like solo journey in running that business. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
I mean, it sounds lonely. Was
crying,
the stress? Yeah, like
I mean, the crying was this like not being able to manage, I guess, the overwhelming experience that I'm having, and sometimes, and this is stuff I'm still working through in my own spiritual journey, is that like I tie success in business to success at life. And I don't think that's the right way to do it, right? Because my proxy now is really different. I had everything to lose back then. Because if that failed, I would probably be living in my parents' house, right? Like you have to figure out a way to survive. And I wanted to thrive. I didn't just want to survive. Now I'm in an interesting place because my base is covered. I'm like my baseline is covered. Now it's all like, now I'm playing with the house. Like I'm playing for keeps, but I still remember these like stresses. And what I'm trying to distinguish right now in my path is like the success of Zion isn't the success of Justin. They aren't universally tied to each other. This will do as it does, and this will do as it does. And I'm trying to decouple that right now in my path.
But at the time they were conjoined.
Yeah.
And that was very difficult with all the stress of a business and trying to.
Yeah, because it's like, okay, I'm managing a P&L. I'm managing, like I had almost 15 employees at some time, and half of them are older than me and they have families. So I'm looking at this, like I'm the CEO of this business. Like this person's making $250,000. This person's making $250,000. Like if I fail as the leader, like they lose a job and they don't have money for their kids. Like I feel that. I was feeling that energy in my heart. So I felt all the pressure of not just myself, but all the families of the employees that I had around me. Like there's a lot of that.
And you stress ate during this time.
Man, I remember this distinctly. Lunch, I'd have breakfast, I'd have lunch, and it was like 2 huge sandwiches. And then dinner, like tons of food, and I wouldn't work out. I would drink. Like I've been sober for almost 3 years now, no alcohol, and I would drink like just to numb it, just to like numb all that like stuff. And I'm like, it was bad time. I mean, you look at some photos and it's gnarly. I was a big dude.
All right. So what turned that around? What was it? Selling the business?
No, it wasn't selling it because I sold the business and I stayed on as CEO for a while. It was this leaving in 2018. So I left the business at the beginning of 2018. I looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, I'm going to die before I'm 30 if I don't figure my shit out. Like I'm looking at my body. I'm looking at myself in the mirror. I was like, I'm going to die if I don't get this figured out right now. So I said to myself, I'm going to get my shit together and I'm going to go find the hardest endurance race that I can do. Of course, I'm going to go do an Ironman as fast as I can. So I spent the next 500 days training to do an Ironman, and I did a full distance Ironman. In the summer of 2019, I lost 70 pounds to do that Ironman.
Well, how do you even decide to do something like that?
So this was my proxy. I said, what is the hardest endurance race I can do with the least likelihood I will hurt or die?
Okay.
So if you look at a graph, it's like hurt yourself, die, one side of the axis, hardest endurance race. Ironman is the hardest one with the least amount of you're going to die.
Okay.
Because you start getting to 50 Ks, you start getting double Ironmans, you starting to get to like ultras. That's when you could really hurt yourself. And so I was like, highest likelihood not to die and hardest race. So I knew how to swim. I was a decent swimmer. I had not run. I couldn't run a mile at this time. I was like, and then I was like, I'm going to do an Ironman in a year. So that's what I did.
Oh, well, tell us about the training then. What did you do for like 500 days?
Training was awesome. So that was one of the most brightest and beautiful times of my life. I decided I'm going to get a coach. I started training with Tower 26 in LA. They're like the best triathlon team in the world. I got an amazing swim coach, amazing run coach, amazing bike coach, amazing overall triathlon coach. My cousin was managing my my therapy of all the things I ate. I had a nutritionist. Like I hired a team to manage everything, and everything was perfect. I would train every day of the week, either swimming, biking, or running. And the weekends were like, look, 18-mile runs on a Saturday, swimming 2 miles and 18-mile runs on Saturdays, and then 8-hour bikes on Sundays. And I did that for a year and a half. It was awesome. I didn't have a job. I was.
And you had just exited, yeah.
I was fun employed, but I was having so much fun. It was like the fun employed for sure. It was one of the best times of my life.
Okay, well, I mean, how do you even keep?
But then
that
I
up?
get punched in the face. But this is how life works, right? Like you go have this amazing experience. I'm doing great. I'm at the top of my game. I'm 9% body fat. I had just done an Ironman. I came in 4th overall in the Malibu Triathlon. I'm high as like life is so good. And then I have a seizure and I find out I have a brain tumor a month later. Like life is not like there are black swan events on every corner, on every single corner. I'm like, okay, let's get back to like your centeredness. Here you go.
Wow. What a crazy like sort of turnaround. So 500 days of discipline, and like, did you feel like you had to hire all those people in order to keep that, or was it something?
Look, I love coaching. I'm a very coachable individual. If like someone that I look up to. So yes, I think I did need it. I needed the accountability of someone else. Like I'm accountable to my coach. My coach is accountable to me. It's making sure that I'm doing all the things that I promised. I didn't have a job, so this was my job. 40 hours a week. I was never a professional athlete, but I trained as if I was a professional athlete. I'm an obsessive dude. I obsess about
You don't
things.
say.
You don't say. I get obsessed. Like in this current state, I'm obsessed with my business. I'm obsessed with Zion. I'm obsessed with this. But at a time, I was obsessed with Ironman. That's what I was obsessed with.
And 500 days of training every single day. What was that like spiritually for you?
It was like when I had to wake, like the hardest days was during the summertime in LA. We would do ocean swims at 5 a.m. So I'm waking up at 4:30. That was the stuff that was like really hard because I'm like, fuck, dude, I don't want to get up. I'm going to swim in the ocean for like an hour and a half. I'm afraid a shark's going to bite me or something crazy is going to happen. But like those, and it's cold in the ocean. You're like, fuck, I don't want to get up. Like those are the days like, or you're getting up on a Saturday morning. You have to do an 8-hour bike ride. You're like, fuck, I just ran 18 miles yesterday. I don't want to go and do this. And you're like, fucking, I'm going to get up and do it. Like this is telling you no. And you're like, fuck no, I'm in charge. Like your body's like, no. I'm like, no, that's
a spiritual battle, right?
I'm like, I had an ice bath in my house that I would every morning at 6 a.m. I get in this ice bath. I was like, these were things that just like, I needed to sharpen my mind. Like my mind is not in charge. I am in charge. I'm in charge of how I show up, what I do, what I say. It was a process of discipline. And the Ironman itself was whatever. Like, cool, it was a 12-hour race, but like, the work is the thing leading up to the Ironman. Like it's not the race day. It's like, okay, you're ready. Go do your job for 12 hours. But it's all the stuff leading up to it. That's the actual work. It's the journey, not the destination.
Well, the spiritual work seems to be that mental thing, right? Like where you don't want to get up and do something, and that's the real battle.
Yeah.
And at least for me, that's where I find like, okay, yeah, this is where I'm growing as a person, right? Because when you do something you don't want to do.
100%.
And you did that for 500 days.
Yeah,
that's
great.
Crazy.
It was great.
Well, so did it get easier, or was it just as hard like on day 490?
No, because look, you start off with 1 mile and then you go to 18 miles. It's like you can't run that first mile. Then you're like, okay, cool, 10 miles is easy, but you're gonna have to run 18. 18 miles is not hard it's not easy for anyone to run. I mean, maybe there's some of these light guys, but my body's like not made for like running 18 miles, no problem. So it gets harder. It's like, it's not like, oh, okay. It's like, no, training gets more difficult because your power goes up. Now it's like, okay, you started at 180 watts as your FTP. Now you're at 240. Now you have to be at 300. You're progressing. You have to get stronger. You're not just you got to keep going. So it progressively gets harder. Yes, your mind gets better. Your engine gets stronger. Your mind gets more solid. It's the mind that gets hardened.
Well, did you see like a parallel to being an entrepreneur between
100%.
All right. So
it's discipline. It's all the function of like, the overarching function is how much discipline do I have in my life? And I think I have relentless discipline for certain things. I sometimes don't want to get up and work. Sometimes I don't want to wake up and go to the gym. Sometimes I don't want to wake up and sometimes I don't want to do things, but I do it anyway because I'm in charge. And I know it's going to make me better on the back half.
Okay, so you do this Ironman. You do 500 days, then you have a seizure. Tell us about what happened with that seizure.
I mean, I was sitting in a dentist chair. I was getting my braces tightened. The light turns on, you know, the little thing when you go to a dentist, he turns on the light and I just go into the light. I passed out. I woke up. I was sweating. I was pale white. I was hot. I started gagging. And basically I go to the hospital. They put me in a CAT scan. They tell me I have a cavernoma in my right temporal lobe that started bleeding. That's what caused the seizure. 6 weeks later, I have brain surgery to remove the cavernoma. January 6, 2020.
And this is right before the pandemic, of course.
I had a pregame to COVID-19. I had brain surgery right before that.
Oh, so what's that like? Like I don't know, prepping for brain surgery? Because you're a finely tuned athlete at that point.
Like at that point, I'm 8% body fat. I'm like, you know, the doctor's looking at me like, we've never done surgery on someone like you. Like it's never happened. Like we get people that are sick, that this symptoms happen or they have them in their brain. So the truth was, I spent 6 weeks learning how to die. I mean, I was reading Ram Dass every night. I was like, you know what? If this thing doesn't work out, I want to like leave so clear and so happy and so beautiful. So I spent the next couple weeks like studying death. That's actually what I did.
Wow.
I said, this is real shit. Like I was like tuning into myself, like love within myself, how I show up in the world, and just studying of like, how do I want to end it? How does this, like, if I leave on that day, if I don't wake up, how do I want it to feel?
And I guess you were getting all your affairs in order at the time and stuff like that.
I mean, it was like, I had a will that I needed to get finished. I needed to, you know, I did. It was really hard to do that. Like, you know, like the will part was really hard for my parents. It was challenging, but I got it done. I mean, I got it done.
Memento mori, huh?
It's actually on so I have this tattoo here. So it's a skull. This is a memento mori tattoo on my left arm. So I have this one. I have Amor Fati here on the right. So
what does that mean?
Amor Fati is the love of fate. So the idea that like shit happens and you have to love every minute of it. Like I love the fact that I had a seizure. I love because it taught me so much about death. I love the fact that, and again, remember that you must die. The ultimatum for all of us is we're going bye-bye at some point. It's the ultimate X factor, right? So the question is, how do you want to live this life? If you only get one at bat, what do you want to do?
Well, you certainly went through that whole brain stuff, and it's 2020. You spent a couple of years training for this thing, accomplishing your goal. Then you have this sort of like black swan event. You get the brain surgery. What happens next?
So COVID happens. I have this weird urge. I bought a ranch in Topanga. I have this weird urge to move to Austin for no particular reason. I have no reason to be here. I knew 2 people that lived in Austin. It was so weird. I move here. When I move here, I get introduced to a couple people that are like highly censored on the internet. And I called an advisor of mine. I said, hey man, what would it take to build something that's like censorship resistant, like really censorship resistant? He's like, the only way to do it is through the money. You got to make sure that the money is highly censorship resistant. There's a thing that I'm involved in called Lightning Labs. It's like I'm an investor in the company. Like, take a look at this white paper. So I'm still kind of recovering from surgery. This is only a couple months after. I read the Lightning white paper on a flight to Istanbul, Turkey for 8 hours. It was the only thing that I had on, and it was actual piece of paper. I'm reading it. I'm like, dude, this was the thing that I needed at my last company and I used PayPal for. This is better version of PayPal. Like, this is it. This is the thing. This is everything. Like, this makes so much sense to me. Like, so then I start calling people. I was like, okay, who's built the social thing on Lightning? Like, who built the thing for influencers? Who built the thing? And then I got introduced to Paula Toy and Sphinx. We started working together for a few months, and a year and a half later, Zion is like here. Now it's this company. Like it was, yeah. That's the story. It's the abridged version of it.
Okay, well, so you learn about Lightning on this flight to Turkey. And you've gone through a tremendous amount of stuff. What makes you want to go and make a new company? Because obviously it wasn't very good for you in some ways, right? Like you gained way too much weight and all this other stuff. Like, why go through that again? Because like you said, you don't have to work. You have money. You can go do whatever you want. What's the thing driving you to this thing?
So I didn't necessarily want to do this at first. So what I did was I went and looked. I said, who is building a company like this? I wanted to invest. I wanted to take my capital. I wanted to be an investor. I want to go find a company doing this. And I searched far and wide. I said, who is building this on Lightning in this way? Who is building it for creators at the core? Who is doing it in this realm with these types of people involved? And I just couldn't find a company. I wanted to, it's not like I woke up, it was just one of those things that enough people told me like, dude, you have to do this because you're probably one of the only people in the world that can. So based upon your background. So I looked at that decision in my soul. I was like, do I do this or do I just fucking still chill? And it just felt right to me to say, you know what? I can do this again. Let's fucking go.
So, when did you come to that decision to like actually go?
November 2020.
Wow. And so it's obviously been a year and a half. What did you do during that time to launch it? Because, you know, it's been coming for a while.
It's, so what have we done over a year and a half? So, you know, the beginning of the process was exploring how the technology would actually come to life without being a technical founder. So it's like, it's very hard because I'm not writing code. I'm not an active, it's very hard for me to, because this stuff is really technical. This is like kind of technical stuff. This is like people like you are a genius. Like what you know is incredible. And I don't know a lot of it. So it was a lot of exploring, you know, it was a blessing that early on, Paul and the Sphinx team was very instrumental in helping us. Paul guided the process at the beginning. Like they were, you know, kind of they helped us kind of fork their code to build the first version of Zion V1 that we put out to the market. And it was all I've been doing for a year and a half is building this narrative and building the technology to be this like Bitcoin social experience for creators. We believe that we can be the Patreon on Lightning. We believe creators have a better way to monetize their fans through the Lightning Network than instead of through credit cards. We think that that's a real opportunity. We believe that censorship can be defeated through the Bitcoin standard. So these are all the narrative, the things that we believed. And you know, a year and a half later, we had this book come out. We've gotten some of the best investors in the world. Like when I started this, I was self-funding the whole project until the moment we went to market. The moment we went to market and we were like, I actually have an app that works. I was like, you know what? Let me take some money from people because I think this needs to be a lot larger than me. That's when we started gathering investors that were like also influential people. That's why we got endorsers that were part of the brand. Like JP's an endorser, that was an endorser of the business. Tony's an investor in the business. Mark Moss and Aubrey Marcus that wrote the quotes on the back are investors in the business. Like we wanted to just start building this collective of individuals that like this could be the first social product that's owned by creators.
Well, I mean, that's kind of the idea. So let's get into Zion because it's a very unique model. Explain how it's different than Facebook or Twitter or something like that.
So the first version was that we want people to own three things in our environment. We want them to own their identity. We want to own all the things that they post within the experience. And we want them to own the relationships they have through money. So how it's different than Facebook is that Facebook is a centralized server where you log in with a centralized ID and then you put all your content to Facebook and then Facebook decides who they want to to send content to. You have no rights on Facebook. You don't own anything at the base layer. Everything they own. And this is the factual inaccuracy. People say my Instagram or my Facebook. It's not your anything. You don't actually own anything on these systems. So we said, let's give people the opportunity to own their identity for the first time. And the first version was you have to run your own Lightning node, and then that Lightning node has a relay around it, and then those relays can connect and speak to each other. We found that that's not a very scalable model. After a few months of launching, we had 3,000 people using the app. The second version of Zion V2, which is coming out in the next few weeks, allows you to have a DID. And then we use a decentralized web nodes, the decentralized web node spec that was built by DIF. This is an implementation that Block is using for TBDEX. And then you have a Lightning wallet. Those three things into one are our software and relay. And this is what allows creators and fans to communicate in a peer-to-peer way using DIDs, decentralized web nodes, and the Lightning Network. The interesting thing about Zion is that every post is an active opportunity to exchange value. Every single post, right? So the comment that you make on a creator's content, the content itself, every aspect of this application can be an active mechanism for value to be exchanged, like a Lightning transaction to occur. And I think that's a really cool paradigm for social, is like everything can be paid for. So now you as a regular user can be a professional consumer of content because it's built on money. It's not an afterthought, right? Like the Lightning is the core of everything that we do. Not an afterthought to what we do. So what's it like if you had a native money to a native social experience?
So I can go and pay for some additional content that I'm curious about.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like the model could be like, think of OnlyFans with Lightning. Oh, the model could be Patreon. You want to join a community and you want to support the creator. That could be another opportunity. Or it's like Instagram as well, where people just post photos and content. All of these opportunities are there because I believe the Lightning Network is the payment processing infrastructure of the creator economy over the long term, right? Jack wants to take care of retail. I want to take care of creators.
And you're certainly working in that direction. So tell me about like how you envision this thing going forward, because you did have that V1 and, obviously running your own Lightning node and putting the app on and everything. It's a little bit of a heavy lift.
Yeah.
What's the difference with V2 and how is it going to make it easier for creators?
So the onboarding experience is very simple. It's you're going to download an app from an app store. You're going to basically put in you're going to get a DID instantly, and then we give you a Lightning wallet on top of that. It doesn't require you to run a full node. We're using an LN bits infrastructure on the technical side that a creator will have a full node, and you can share that. It will be kind of a shared experience. And this LN bits infrastructure is used by a lot of the wallets that you see out there. So it's like kind of an open standard. So you'll be able to onboard instantly like any other app. But the difference is we don't have a user table database. You have to have your private keys, your 12-word seed phrase that you control, but it's going to be like any other app. And then if you want to join communities, you have to fund your Lightning wallet. You can fund it with Cash App. You can fund it with Strike. You can fund it with Moon. Any wallet can fund your Zion wallet. And then you could go and transact with creators and communities. The whole point is we want this to be for everyone. We want anyone to be able, without even knowing Lightning, can download the application and instantly start engaging with fans and creators really quickly.
And that seems to be the direction you're going. So let's talk a little bit about the book, because I think it lays out sort of like your vision based on that. So some really interesting things that I thought that you pointed out in the book that were really good is just how much of something like Facebook, Twitter, even traditional media is driven by ads, and specifically by pharma companies, which is really scary given what's been going on the last couple of years.
Sponsored by Pfizer.
Yeah. So what's like, how does that affect your experience on, or the typical person's experience on these networks?
So the question is, when you're building a business, who is the product and who are you selling to, right? For us, Zion, the customers are not the product. The product is the service that we provide, and our customers, in fact, are creators. The creators that want to go on the infrastructure, those are our customers. And we want to provide infrastructure for them to be able to create and build a better relationship with their audience. If you look at centralized social media, you as an individual are the product, and who they're selling to is a third-party advertiser to subsidize the cost. So their job is to keep you addicted. It's to manipulate you. It's to keep you in echo chambers. It's to make you say like, oh yeah, I agree with that, or I don't agree with that. It's to get you riled up. This is all open information. The business models are broken. The advertising business model, I think, is broken for social media, and I think it creates more harm for us than anything. So I wanted to fundamentally build a business that had a different model in a way to monetize. And I think the opportunity is with Zion, you can the community subsidize to be on the experience itself. And then with Lightning, it allows us to be very free with, potentially how we monetize as a company as well. Like, I think the end state of our business is a marketplace model where we're taking small amounts of sats in every single transaction in the network, and that's how we subsidize the utility to keep running.
Well, so what service are you providing besides, I guess, the development of the apps? Like, because in a sense, Lightning really is a peer-to-peer network where I'm able to connect to whoever, and as long as I already have the software, like what value are you providing, I guess?
I think the client, right? The value is the client right now, is the experience that you can engage with the creator. It's fine that you can route a payment, but if you can't see content, so we're creating this spec. It's a UCAN spec. It's all in our open source code. Is how are we enabling UCAN to actually pay for content? So yes, everything could be payment on the rails of Lightning, but if you want to pay for content individually inside of a great user experience, that's what we're providing. Like, our software allows for that. So I think that's the value, is that we're kind of this client that's the connector between creators and fans.
I see. So you're going to develop software that makes it easier for people to connect and so on.
That's the application. That's the end state
What
of the
about
application.
what about the marketplace though? Because I think that also seems to have potential.
So the marketplace, the way I describe the marketplace, is the business model in the sense of that if every piece of content is an active transaction, then there's an opportunity that if we took a certain fee on every single transaction, that's how we could monetize. The proxy for this is Zion launched in August. And we only launched to a small group of individuals, but we processed 110,000 forward transactions between our routing nodes, between individuals. And this is in our closed network, because we have leaf nodes connecting through routing nodes. So I looked at that and I said, wow, with about 3,000 people over 6 months, 120,000 transactions, not a huge amount of sats moved, but they were transactions nonetheless. This is the end state business model. If you get enough people on this thing, and there's enough transactions occurring, then the way that Zion will make money is through the small amount of, the percentages of these smaller transactions. And if I look at the proxy, you have OnlyFans that takes 30%, you have Patreon that takes 10%, because they have credit card processors, they have banks, they have all these rails that they have to sit on. They take 2%, this takes 4%, this takes 1%. If I did that through Lightning, I could make it a much smaller transaction fee, allow for instant remittance and instant settlement to the creator. That's a much better version of all these other applications.
And that's really cool. I mean, do you see this sort of like being available to people in the developing world and 100%.
Stuff like that? The app. That's the thing about the V2, is that we didn't want to restrict anyone, that if they didn't have a node, if you have a phone that can access an app store and you can download an application, you can create a DID for free, and you can create a Lightning wallet for free. You can do those two things. And then from that experience, you can start earning. If you want to create a community and you start creating content and people find value of it, you can start earning as a creator instantly with the application. We're trying to remove the friction as much as possible, but I didn't know this a year ago. I didn't know that this technology wasn't available a year ago. The decentralized web node spec isn't officially launched until July 1st of this year, July 1st of 2022. If we didn't have the relationships we did, we wouldn't have known about it, right? So we're sitting on the bleeding edge of a lot of this stuff.
Wow. So sounds like you're very much progressing on this. So what's coming up next? What are you going to do with Zion? I guess you got V2 coming up. You got some other releases. We've been talking about how busy we were. What are you busy with?
I want to get this app to our community as fast as possible.
Okay.
I want like my 100% focus is this product. The book was a catalyst to just understand our thinking, why we are approaching things in this way. But 100%, I want to get this product to market because I think the world needs it. The world deserves it. The world should not, we shouldn't be at the quell of billionaires, right? Like we have, obviously, Elon's trying to take over Twitter, but the business model is still broken. No matter what he does, he has shareholders, he has to subsidize costs through advertising. Like that's the reality of their current state of their business. Everyone wants a censorship resistant product. Everyone's talking about it. It's at the ether of everything. So I think this is the way that it's going to be done. And we just want to get there as fast as anybody else.
Interesting. Definitely true. All right. So we're coming up towards the end of the hour. So where can people find you? Where can people contact you?
Just my name on the internet, Justin Rezvani. I'm on Twitter, and then I post some stuff on Instagram here and there. The company's Zion. If you search Zion Bitcoin, it's the only thing that will pop up. And yeah, you can find me on the internet. This was a pleasure.
Yeah, and you can go download a node pretty soon, or
you'll be able to download the app. I mean, if you want to get on, if you go on the website and just put your email in, you'll be the first to know about our launch. But we're launching very soon with all the, well, we have thousands of current customers that are using the app. We close that off. They're going to be the first ones to get the first version. So if you're a customer already, thank you for being a customer. The next version will be launched very, very soon in the next few weeks.
All right. Well, very excited to see how that goes because obviously, censorship and stuff like that is a big deal right now.
It's a big problem.